and welcome to my Icy Jump mapping tutorial. This is the uh, first video in the series. In this series, I'm going to be talking about how to install Radiant and how to get your mapping directory and everything all set up, as well as setting up some other things that you'll be needing for Radiant and to get your textures and everything set up. And it's kind of an in-depth getting everything ready to make a map so that then in the next episode we can delve right into mapping, creating brushes, and using surface generators and such. So if you think that this is not for that you've already installed Radiant and everything's fine, I would suggest watching this. This really gives the proper way to install. If you don't have it installed exactly the way I have it, I would suggest um, changing, because this will provide you with the best possible way to test your maps, and it'll also create, as well as setting up the textures in the later half of the tutorial, later half of this video. um, the setting up the textures is really important so that you don't get conflicts with other maps and stuff in your map. So it saves server admins a lot of trouble, saves Rambetter a lot of trouble, saves other people that get on your map and go, why the hell are my textures on IC5 now all screwed up? It fixes a lot of that hassle. So what I'm going to do is just basically show you how to set this all up. So the first thing is I set up a new mapping directory that I'm going to be working with you guys in. It's right here. I installed Urban Terror. It takes a little bit to install Urban Terror, so I did it beforehand so you guys didn't have to sit and watch the loading screen. But basically this is a brand new Urban Terror directory. It's basically right out of the box, 4.1.1, and I did add my own config files for the for keybinds and stuff, but that's about all I've added. I also did drop in the stuff for the bumpy build, which I'll be using in later series for making HD stuff. If you want, because I'm going to go into a little bit later, I'll go into some HD textures as well as like fancy water and things like that. So I have that installed, but it's not really necessary, and you can work off of just a normal Urban Terror, um, straight up blank directory that's just fresh install. And you should be working with a fresh install. If you're not working with a fresh install, I would suggest making your own fresh install. Um, then I'm going to go to the forums.icyjumps.com. This is where Rambetter keeps, he has a post under mapping and stuff, and latest 0 Radiant Windows build. This is for those of you who are with Windows. It's the first post. I have these in reverse order, but the first post here has a link to download uh, Radiant, 0 Radiant, and that's what we'll be doing all of our editing in. And so gonna need to download this. I already have it downloaded. It's in my downloads. It's simply a zip file. And so all you have to do is extract the zip file. Whoa, what's going on here? Not sure what's going on. Okay, accident. Okay, so all you have to do is extract the 0 Radiant into the mapping folder. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm using WinRAR. If you don't have WinRAR or don't want to use WinRAR, it's a zip file, so you can simply use WinZip to extract it. Now, if you're doing this on Linux, this this first part of this first video is going to be different. This is not how you're going to install Radiant. You do want to create your own mapping directory, um, with a separate Urban Terror and Zero Radiant similar to this. However, in Linux, it's a little bit different. If you want to go over that, you'd have to go to compiling GTK Radiant on Windows on daffy.nereus.com. This is Rambetter's server. If you go to this, he has a full, oh, not on Windows, mapping for on Linux. And so this is how, this is where you would set up creating, set up Radiant, and he has a full how-to on that. So if you're running Linux, you can basically skip what I just went over, and you can go straight to Rambetter's website and get that information. So to start out, I'm going to open up Radiant. It's going to ask me what game I want to configure. I want to configure Urban Terror. For the engine directory, I'm going to go to C, my new mapping, Urban Terror, and that's my engine directory. So I say OK and OK. I want to auto load this game on startup because it's I only map in Urban Terror. So that's OK. All right, so I'm going to reposition these windows here to give me kind of the visual look I like. First off, one of the things that I immediately change is I go to the miscellaneous menu, colors, themes, and go to black and green. I like working on the black and green because it's a lot easier on your eyes. It's a lot easier to see everything. It's just everything looks a whole lot nicer and better in my opinion. I like dark backgrounds when I'm working with a 3D application or like a CAD program, so I do that. So now that we got that all set up, we have Radiant all configured. The next thing, I'm going to close out of that, and I'm going to set up textures for that we can work with. So I am going to go and I am going to use, I'm going to go to my normal Urban Terror directory. So this is the Urban Terror directory that I normally play on. And I am going to grab the Icy sequel PK3. Now I have, if you have WinRAR, you can just open up this Icy sequel as a PK3 and it recognizes it. If you don't have WinRAR and don't want to get WinRAR, then you're going to have to rename it. If you go to Organize and Folder and Search Options and go to View, and where is the this hide extensions for known file types, if you check that, it normally is checked. If you uncheck that, you'll see the PK3 on the end of each one of these files. What you want to do is you want to rename it so that it's a .zip and hit enter. It'll say, hey, this might become unusable. It's fine. It opens, everything's there, so you can that's an easy way to extract it information out of PK3s if you don't have WinRAR. So I'm going to change it back because I don't want to lose that later. Okay, so I'm going to open that in WinRAR. You can extract the whole thing to a separate directory and then pull files from there. I'm only going to be pulling some specific things from this PK3 or from this map. So I'm going to go back to my mapping directory, back to Urban Terror. And if you, I'm not sure if I went all the way, yes, I did. If you go back in the video, you'll notice that after installing Radiant, it puts two different, it puts some new folders in here. It puts a maps folder and a scripts folder in your Q3 UT4 folder. We're also going to add some more folders. We're going to add a textures folder and an ENV folder And I believe that's it for now. Later, when we get into adding sounds and things, we'll add some more folders, like the sound and level shots. Those will come later. But for right now, we're going to copy the env, the Icy SQL folder. We're going to drag it right into our env folder. Okay, going to go back. Going to go to the scripts folder. We're going to copy the Icy SQL shader and the RAM common shader. And we're going to drag those right into the scripts folder. And then the textures, we're going to take all of these and take those and drop them in the textures folder. Okay. So that's all we need to get started with the textures. Now, what I'm going to do is this next map that I'm going to make, I'm going to call it Icy Tutorial. So to make the textures really workable with Icy Tutorial and not conflict with Icy SQL, we have to rename a lot of things. So the first thing is basically anything that's labeled Icy SQL. So the environment, here's the different pictures that are used for uh, the surrounding environment, but it's in an Icy SQL folder. So to make it so that this map doesn't interfere with the Icy SQL map or any other map, we're going to call it Icy Tutorial instead. And then we go to textures. This Icy SQL with an underscore before it, I'm simply going to put an underscore before, leave the underscore, and type Icy Tutorial, if I can spell. Same to this one, Icy Tutorial. And then this one, because I don't want to conflict with this one either, I'm going to call it Tutorial Common. And now, so we also need to go into the scripts folder and find the Icy SQL. This is our shader which points radiant to your, and points radiant and urban terror to the pictures to texture all of the surfaces. We're going to need to change that to Icy Tutorial. And change this to Tutorial Common. All right. So if we go into this, if we open up this Icy Tutorial shader, I would suggest to open it with WordPad or Notepad++. Either one of those works pretty well. I don't currently have Notepad++ on here, but I would suggest not opening it in regular Notepad because the word wrap and just doesn't work very well, and you end up with a much better format if you use Notepad++ or WordPad. So I'm using WordPad at the moment. Okay, so don't want to make it full screen. If you notice in here, there's still labels that say Icy SQL. Right now, the way that I'm going to just give you a quick rundown right now of how shaders work. This here gives you the name of the shader, and this is what you'll see in Radiant. You'll see it called Stratosphere. You'll see a picture of of one of the background images that are used to make the world, make the skybox, and it'll be called Stratosphere. So this is what the name is. To be able to, although the name itself is in uh, it's like a file structure. It's the textures. The shader name always starts out with textures. Then this is the name of the shader itself. And the shader used to be called Icy SQL, but we renamed it to Icy Tutorial right here. So this needs to get changed to Icy Tutorial, and then we can leave Stratosphere because, yeah, that won't cause any problems. Then inside the brackets, if you see another path name, this is simply referring to the actual image. So if we go back to our Q3, oops, that's the wrong one. If we go back to our Urban Terror Q3 UT4 folder, we open up, see here, what's the first one? Environment. So env, I'm going to open up env, and then this was called Icy SQL, and then it has the stratosphere underscore ft.tga. So this is pointing to pictures or images in the in what will be the PK3, but for right now in our mapping directory. So this needs to change because it's no longer called Icy SQL. It's now, the folder is now Icy Tutorial. So a quick way to do this, I'm going to use the replace function, find what Icy SQL, and I'm going to change it to Icy Tutorial. Replace all. So it's going to search the entire document and replace everything to Icy Tutorial, and that's exactly what I want. So now all of the textures in everything that refers to it, everything in here that refers to one of these textures, it will have the correct folder name in it because I named these Icy Tutorial. So that should fix all of that. And this is very necessary. This is a very necessary step when you're using textures from somebody else's map. And so, um, yeah, that's how you do that. We need to do the same thing though. I do want to save. Need to do the same thing though to tutorial common because it used to be called RAM common. So I need to use the replace, find what, and all right, replace all. Okay. I'm going to save and close. So now your shaders and textures should be all, you can substitute the name of whatever your map is. I would suggest that even more so, because there's a chance from like beta 1 to beta 5, you might end up with new or different shaders, and if people keep the old versions, there could be conflicts. So I would suggest even for you I'm not going to do this right now, but I would suggest doing the full name. So IC Tutorial B1, A or whatever, the full name um, uh, of whatever your map is, and using the very full name, as well as for your textures folders. You should use the full name of your map. So that's really the proper way to set this up. But since I'm only going to be making this one map and I'm not going to be changing editions, I know that these are going to stay the same for the most part. And even if they don't, I can change them, but I'm only going to be making like one release of this map, so it's not a big deal. But if for doing a full map, you really do want to name these the full underscore B1 or whatever, and then from edition to edition, you have to change the name of the shader, the names of the folders, etc. Now, the next part of this is the shader list. The shader list is very important. Inside the shader list, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't make any sense. This is basically a list of all the shaders that are used in Urban Terror for all the frag maps that already come with Urban Terror, and we don't need them. So if you're going to be doing frag mapping later, you might want to save those, but I would suggest just renaming the shader list and creating a new shader list that has simply what you're going to be using with what you're currently mapping with. So I'm going to simply add IC tutorial, and then on a new line, tutorial underscore common. So I just need to add those two. And what this does is this just simply tells Radiant which shaders to look to for textures. And I'll show you in Radiant why that's important. So I'm going to go back. I shouldn't have closed that. I'm going to go back, go to mapping, open Radiant. So the reason why the shader list is important, and for some reason, probably because I did not quit correctly, it did not save my settings. So I'm going to go back to the black and green. Okay, so under the textures menu, you'll see all kinds of textures, and there are literally hundreds of textures to choose from that are already built into Urban Terror. They have all kinds of textures that you can use. However, we're not going to use any of them except for the ones that we created for Icy Tutorial. So what we want to do is we want to show only the ones in the shader list.txt. So if we click that, now you'll notice that all we have is Icy Tutorial and Tutorial Common. So we can click on those and it'll load up all of the Icy textures we need, and it's super easy to switch between that and our common textures that we'll be using. So that's how you do that. That's all for this tutorial. This basically sets us up to really just start mapping in the next tutorial, and I'll be coming out with that soon. So hang in there, and I'll have the next tutorial out soon. Thanks, guys.